Alright, on the second quiz there will be a few different types of parallel line or overlapping triangle or bow tie type triangle problems. This first video is going to go over 3 examples. There will be a follow-up video that will go over a couple of different types of problems for you to be ready for. First, in number 1, you have these parallel lines which are indicating that your triangles ABE and ACD are similar by angle-angle similarity. Angle ABE is going to be congruent to angle ACD because they're corresponding angles of parallel lines, and then the same can be said about angle AEB and angle ADC, congruent angles because they are corresponding. And because they are similar triangles, we know our sides are proportional, but we also have the side splitter theory or our railroad track type problems where I know that x and x plus 9 can correspond, 9 and 11 can correspond. So I can set up the proportion x over x plus 9 equals 9 over 11. I can set up proportions across these parallel lines, and it's like a parallel line problem. Now I cross multiply. 11 times x is 11x equals 9 times x plus 9. And I go through the algebra to solve. I trust that you guys can do that algebra at this point, so I'm not going to show it. I will give us our answer. We should get x is 40.5. If you didn't get that, go back and check the algebra. If I got it wrong, make sure you remind me that I got that wrong and I can fix it. Alright, when you're ready, move on to the second problem on this page and we'll review that. This problem is definitely different because I cannot set up proportions on those across, kind of parallel with my parallel lines. I don't know WD and DS. I don't know those segments. Okay, so I cannot do that. And I cannot set up my proportions on that, comparing that side to this side and this part of a side to this whole side. That doesn't work. So I have to look at this as 2 completely separate triangles. Those 2 triangles are the small one, WTD, and then the bigger one, triangle WHS. We have to make sure we're labeling them correct. The small one's not too bad. We know that WT is 12, and we know that TD is 8. I can label that. I also know HS is x plus 2. This is the harder one, though. WH. WH is a segment addition problem. I have to combine 2x minus 12 with 12 by adding them. When I do that, negative 12 and 12 cancel. This whole side of WH is actually 2x. That's the key to these types of problems. When I have the side of the triangle and then these 2 bases are our parallel sides, you cannot do it the same way we did number 1. We have to split these triangles apart. Now I can recognize that I have similarity. I have my similar triangles. I can set up my proportions to solve. 12, which is WT, corresponds to WH over 2x, equals 8, which is TD, and corresponds to HS over x plus 2. Once again, we cross multiply. 8 times 2x equals 12 times x plus 2. And I trust you can do the algebra from here, solving to get x equals 6. Just like before, if that doesn't make sense, or if I got it wrong, remind me. If you have questions, make sure you ask. Alright, looking ahead to number 3. If you want, go ahead and try it now. Hit pause and try it, then come back and check your answer as I go over it. So for number 3, I like to start with actually explain why the triangles are similar, because that helps me write my similarity statement. The key to this is these lines are parallel. QR is parallel to PT. That allows me to make conclusions on congruent angles. I know that angle Q has to be congruent to angle T, and that angle R has to be congruent to angle P. So I have those 2 congruent angle pairs, both of which are congruent because they are alternate interior angles of parallel lines. Okay. Notice parallel line with parallel line, and if that's my, I can extend down here as parallel lines, that's my transversal. Angle Q and T are on opposite sides. That's alternate, and they are in between the parallel lines. That's interior. Alternate interior angles are congruent when we have parallel lines. Therefore, since I have two angle pairs that are congruent, why are they similar? They are similar by angle-angle similarity, and there's my evidence. Now I'm going to go back and write my similarity statement. I can match up corresponding angles to write this. I can name this triangle, start it with angle Q, and angle Q is congruent to angle T, so it corresponds to T, so I must start my other triangle with its corresponding angle. Move on to R. That means I have to move on to P. The only thing left is S. Now, I could have also used this angle being congruent to this angle because they're vertical angles, name them angle 1 and 2, and state that those are congruent because they are vertical angles and vertical angles are congruent. But I don't need to, and either way I would have needed alternate interior angles, because in order to use angle-angle similarity we need two angle congruent statements. Now I have my congruencies. Make sure you pay attention to your similarity statement when you are doing the rest of this. I know my x's are at segment QR and segment QS. I have to use those to solve for x. Well, segment QR corresponds in the other triangle to segment TP. Look at your congruent statement or your similarity statement. That's going to help you set this proportion up. The other side I need to compare is side QS, because that has my other x. Well, that is in the same triangle as QR, so I have to be consistent with my numerators, and QS corresponds with TS. I got the first one wrong. QR is to TP, so that should have been a P. Then I make sure, do what I just did, double check. QR and TP, that corresponds, so that ratio is good. QS and TS, that corresponds, so that ratio is good. Now I can set up my actual proportion and solve. QR is 3x minus 4 over TP. TP is 10. QS is 2x over TS, that's 8. So I don't need that 9 at all. That 9 is just extra information that I didn't need to solve for x. Algebra again. Cross multiply and solve. I trust you can do that. When you do that, we should get x equals 8. If that was something you didn't get, double check your math, double check your algebra. If you still don't understand it, make sure you ask questions. The second video for today is going to go over the practice problems on the back of this review sheet. When you're ready, go ahead, close this video out, and move on to our second video.